Well, good morning, everybody. Today is Tuesday, October 17th, and it's about 10 a.m. And this morning I got up I set my alarm for 6:30. That didn't quite happen. But got out of bed about quarter after 7, and it was still dark. Sun didn't come up till closer to 8:30. And so I went out and I decided I wanted to shoot some B-roll, and just took a short drive down over to Lake Superior and set up the camera and got some shots, walked around a little bit, and just enjoyed the glory of this morning. It's beautiful, beautiful weather today. Last night I think it got down to maybe 48, 47 degrees, something like that. So it wasn't too bad. I stayed pretty warm in the tent. I had to set up the tent in the cloak of darkness last night, as you're well aware by now. But it worked out pretty good. Got ourselves a good spot. This is the spot next to where we stayed this summer when we were here. We actually stayed at 166, and when we were here I kind of looked at the spot and liked this one, and so when I booked it for this fall trip, this was the spot I chose. So today, kind of gonna just chill a little bit and do some scouting. Don't have any big plans on the agenda. Tonight, probably going to go over to Horseshoe Harbor and set up a shot that I have in mind over there with the 4x5. And then just kind of scout around and enjoy the fall color and being out here in Copper Harbor in October. Why are these bugs all over my camera? Anyway, like I said, just going to enjoy the day, and no major plans. Horseshoe Harbor tonight for sunset. Gonna set up the 4x5, so I am gonna have to load some film because I've got some Fuji Velvia 100 sheet film loaded, but I don't have any Velvia 50 loaded, and I'd rather shoot on that tonight. So that's something I'll have to do a little bit later on, but I brought my tent, and won't be a problem to do that. Anyway, as I said, I'm going to finish up my tea here, and I'm going to get ready to head in and grab some breakfast. And then, I don't know, I might head over to Magnes Falls. I was kind of thinking about heading over to the falls and seeing what that looks like. It's kind of started out as being a little overcast, although that's lifted a little bit. We're getting some bluer skies. The sun's kind of poking through. But this might be a good day to get down there and shoot the falls again, because it's certainly overcast enough to where we're not going to get any real hot spots coming through at the top of the falls like I was getting when I was here in the summer. So I'm going to check that out, and then again probably head over to Horseshoe Harbor tonight and shoot a formation of rocks that's just offshore that I call the three humpbacks. And you'll see when we get there why I refer to them as the three humpbacks, but they kind of look like three humpback whales coming up for air. So I took a image of that when I was here in the summer with my Mamiya 7.2 with the 43mm wide angle lens, and I want to shoot it with the 4x5, and I want to kind of go for more of the normal lens. I'm going to probably use the 120 on it, maybe even the 210. I kind of want to accentuate those three humpbacks in the background a little bit more than I did with the Mamiya 7.2, because in that shot they appear on the horizon as these three dark objects. And I kind of want to mimic that somewhat, but I really want to draw more attention to them and show a little more detail on them. So I'm probably going to go with a little bit longer lens on that, and then I'm going to switch the format up to 4x5. I feel kind of bad. Since I bought the Mamiya 7.2, that was in November, I haven't shot the 4x5 once this year, so I've brought both cameras on this trip, and definitely going to be photographing with both. I feel like I've abandoned my poor Ebony 4x5, and I want to give it some love and, just rekindle that flame that I have with the love of 4x5. But they're both great cameras, so I love shooting them both, and there's various reasons for shooting both of them. So very happy that I'm able to have the choice. Anyway, as I said, I'm going to go grab some breakfast, but I'll check in with you later. All right, let's head into town and get something to eat. Alright, we just pulled into town. We're at my favorite breakfast place, so I'm going to stop in and grab a bite. But I'm not going to take the camera with me, so I'll catch up with you guys in a bit. Alright, breakfast was good, so now we're going to check out Manganese Falls. Let's head up the road and see what that's looking like right now. So that's the falls, that's Manganese Falls. And last summer when I was here, I was down at the base of the falls and I took a couple exposures down there. And then I hiked up the side of the hillside here to get to the upper reaches of the falls, which is where we just were and where we just crossed. And that's when I saw that there was a little bit different perspective that I wanted to capture, but I didn't have any way to really get down there. So if you see down here, down in this area, that's probably about 25 feet or so down there. And I thought that'd be cool. It'd be a neat new perspective that I don't have and that most people probably don't get because it's not easy to climb down there. So I started to try to climb down there and it was a little slippery and I had my backpack with me and I realized, you know what, I better not do this. You know, I'm 40 years old now. If I slip, fall, and kill myself, then my family's gonna starve. So I ordered a rope and a harness and a carabiner and a safety 8, and I'm gonna attempt to climb down there and get the shot that I wanted. Thinking about harness off to one of these trees over here and then toss it over the side and probably climb down like right here in this area because there's these two big rocks. And I think I'll be okay with the safety rope. But getting down there with the Mamiya 7.2 and getting some cool shots, just where this cascade is, I think I could get some cool perspectives that you don't usually see at these falls. Let's keep hiking. Got to be careful up here on the hillside. I got to watch my feet instead of watching the lens. It's a good drop from here. It's every bit of 40 feet down to there for sure. It's kind of deceiving, it's hard to tell, but it's at least 40 feet. So I'm going to climb down to the base of the falls where I got the shot last summer and kind of give you that perspective down there. So to do that, I'm going to follow this ridge line here and hopefully not slip and kill myself. Okay, so here we are at the base of the falls, and to get back up to the spot I was shooting at last summer, we got to climb up over this little waterfall thing here. And it's really slippery here, so you got to be careful when you're down here. I mean, I'm wearing Merrells right now, Merrell Chameleons, and they have a really good grip on them, but even with these things on, I slip around a lot. So definitely a little bit more water here than there was in the summer. We were able to kind of walk through this area here without getting wet, but I noticed that yeah, the river's flowing a little bit more than it was, a little bit more heavy with water now than it was during the summertime. This is just awesome in here. This is like, I've never been to the Pacific Northwest, but I've seen lots of pictures and video of it. But I mean, take a look at this stuff. All right, let's try to hike up in here a little bit without getting killed and see if I can get you closer to the base of the falls. Let's go. Okay, so that was not easy climbing up through there with all that water now. Again, it wasn't as much water here in the falls as there was in the summertime. So probably a better way would have been to climb down this ridge here behind me and come down this side, but I chose to do the hard way, which is par for the course. So we're gonna hike further back up here. Here's the base of the falls, you can see over my shoulder, and we'll check that out. Let's go. Okay, we made it up the steep side of the bank. Here, the little river coming through from Manganese Falls, which is right here behind us. And this is the spot last summer where I took about 3 different images right here in this little pool right below the falls. So you can see behind me, there's that rock that I had in the composition. If you watched my film review, you'd seen the rock that was in that film review in this falls that I was talking about when I was shooting. And then up here is the falls itself. So, and this is that pool area right below the falls. So we had to hike back through that area right there behind me. And you know, it's not extremely steep, but it is really slippery, and the water's cold, and I didn't want to fall in or drop the camera. That was my main concern. But now that we're here, I mean, it's like your own private little Eden. It's gorgeous. It's a really awesome spot in here. So I don't think I'm going to do any more compositions from here at the base. I'm probably going to, like I said, try to climb down from up top and get inside of the falls, that little cavern there of the falls itself, and get a couple different shots in there. So definitely going to be using the rope for that, taking my time, and I'm not going to try to bring the 4x5 down there for that. I'm going to definitely bring the Mamiya 7 for that, because that's an easy backpack to carry and tight space in there. I don't have time to mess around with the 4x5. So pretty awesome down here. Take a look at that. So that up there is some reflected light that's lighting this area here behind me over here, which is pretty cool. And that's what I was using in the summertime when I was photographing this area. Was the sun was coming through here, bouncing off this wall up here, and then lighting up this area here with the stone, and this was my composition leading back into the falls. So really neat little area. And the cool thing about it is there's a lot of tourists that'll come and look at it, but not many of them are willing to make the trek hiking along the side of the river to get up to where we are right here. So I've seen some people here. There were some folks here when we pulled in today. Nobody's up in here. So really awesome spot. Let's get out of here, head back up that way, and go check some other stuff out. Walking through this forest here, you really get the feeling of being amongst centenarians. I mean, these trees are well over 100 years old. It's just like the Valley of Giants here. Yeah, I know that the redwood forest, those trees are much larger than these here, but they're still very special. You know, from Michigan, this is amazing to be able to walk out and see this kind of stuff, because you don't see that here. Our forests were cut and cleared many times over, and there's only a few select places where trees of this size and this age still live. So it's amazing. I mean, there's a feeling that you get here when you're standing here next to these trees. It's hard to describe, but it's very peaceful here, but I feel very small in comparison to the greater existence and the life force that dwells within some of these amazing beings here. Look at that thing. Just gorgeous. It's huge. It's a beautiful, beautiful tree here. I mean, I can't even get the camera all the way around it. Look at that. Very thankful that places like this exist and that we can still experience nature that's hundreds and hundreds of years old, and in the case of some of the rocks here, millions of years old. Some of the rock around this area in Copper Harbor is some of the oldest exposed rock that we've cataloged to date. It's a very special place. So this is one of those 300 to 500 year old white cedar trees, and this one is no longer living, but you can see the immense size of this tree. It's just amazing. These trees were allowed to live and grow and weren't clear cut for homes and wood and furniture and other various items. You'd be seeing a lot more of these old growth forests protected, but unfortunately man has done a pretty good job of clearing most of this. But I mean, look at the size of this tree. It's beautiful. I'm a tree hugger. Okay, so I just want to make a statement here. When you're in the woods like this and you're in these sanctuaries in nature and these beautiful untouched places that are really basically the living God as I can attest to it. I mean, I feel that nature is just such a holy and sacred thing that, to me, this is God. If you want to call somebody God, nature's God to me. But whatever your beliefs are, that's fine. One thing I hope that you will take in heed is, please don't deface things like the trees, the rocks, that kind of stuff. I mean, don't carve your names. Don't do this. I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, nobody cares that Bob and Daryl love each other and Carol and Nick were here in 2009. And, you know, that's ridiculous. That is destruction right there. I mean, if you were caught doing that in the city and you're caught spray painting, you know, the side of a building or something like that, you'd be thrown in jail for that. That's ridiculous. Leave that stuff alone. Don't come out here and destroy nature, okay? Man's done enough of that. Leave this stuff be. Don't carve your name in trees. Don't carve your name in rocks. Don't be cute. It's not funny, okay? Leave it for everybody else to enjoy. This is not your place to do that, okay? We share this. Leave it alone. So behind me is one of those 300 to 500 year old white cedar trees. And I mean, it's absolutely amazing to see something like this in person. I mean, can you imagine 300 to 500 years old? I mean, that's as old as your great-grandfather, depending on how old you are. Just this tree has stood for generations. And, you know, years and years ago, trees just like this covered most of our state. But they were all cut down, clear-cut for either farmland or to build homes in cities and towns. After the Great Chicago Fire, a lot of Michigan's old hardwood growths were cut and used to rebuild Chicago. I mean, can you imagine what this state would have looked like if they were allowed to stand? So it's really special to have places like this that some of these trees are still protected. And can you imagine what this tree would say if it could speak? You know, 500 year old tree sitting here in the forest, the stories that it could tell. And I like to think maybe it sounds something like that red squirrel over there. I'd like to think that, you know, if you sit here and you're quiet enough and still enough, that you could actually hear the stories they have to say. But just amazing.
We were born before the wind. 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 Also younger than the sun. We were born before the wind. Also younger than the sun.
Okay. Maybe not the car, but at least I can fit inside of it.
Also younger than the sun. And the body boat was one. As we sailed through the misty.
Well, that was an amazing hike. Estevant Pines. If you guys are up here in the Keweenaw, you definitely got to check it out. It's really worth it. Just to see those amazing 300 and 500 year old white pines protected and standing here still is just awesome. Well, as I said, I gotta head back to camp and I gotta load some sheet film for tonight because I'm gonna shoot with the 4x5, and so I'm gonna head back and take care of that. And I'm also gonna clean up a little bit. So I didn't brush my teeth this morning, and I'm sorry guys if I've offended you. Whew, yeah, I'm gonna take care of that, and hopefully it didn't translate through the video. But anyway, on my way back to the car now, and I'll check in with you guys later on. Peace. Okay, we're back at camp, and as I mentioned, I've got to load some film holders, which is never fun, but an essential part of the process. So it's been about a year since I've done this. As I mentioned, I've been shooting a lot more since I've bought it with Mamiya 7 II, and the last time I actually shot with the Ebony 4x5 was here last October. Fuji Velvia 50 4x5 sheet film. Always blow out all your film holders first before you load any film in them. Just make sure that get all the dust out, anything that could be laying around there that could translate to the film. You want to keep your film as clean as possible from dust. Dust is the enemy of a film photographer. Now I know how a blind squirrel feels. Wonder if that squirrel over there is blind. So one of the things I've learned over the years while loading sheet film is, first off, there wasn't a lot of resources for it, which is why I created a video titled Loading Large Format and 4x5 Film Holders, which did pretty well on YouTube. In fact, it's my #1 most viewed video and probably the poorest in production value, but I guess it got the point across. Now, I've changed my method over the years for doing so since I've made that video, and I used to load the film holders with the dark slides out all the way, and I would turn them on a horizontal angle to me, and I would insert them that way, and it took quite a bit longer. Then I learned to turn them vertical so they looked like portrait, the short side facing me, long side going vertical, and insert them from the top towards me. And then I learned to keep the dark slides in and keep them in most of the way, so when you are inserting the film, it gives you a kind of a safety or a stopper from allowing that film to go into the wrong slot, because there are 2 slots, one for the film and one for the film holder. So all that said and done, it's made the process much easier. There we go. So this goes back in the cooler, that goes in the camera bag, and our work is done. We're ready for tonight. Okay, so now that we've got the film loaded and I've got the 4x5 outfit set up and ready to go, we are ready to hit the trail. But still got a couple hours before we're gonna head out there, so I'm gonna go grab some dinner and yeah, stock up on some energy. So I think I'm gonna go try the lodge. I haven't eaten there yet, and I noticed that they had a special advertised prime rib and shrimp, whitefish. Looks pretty good. So yeah, I think I'll go check that out, go fill up on some grub, and go out there and try to make some nice images tonight. Alright, here we are. Keweenaw Mountain Lodge. Let's go get some grub. Looks delicious. Well, that was simply amazing. Best meal I've had up here so far. That piece of whitefish was huge. Wow, it's great. Check out that view. That is amazing. That's Brockway Mountain. See that car coming down from up there? Maybe not. Got the wide angle on the GoPro. But that's Brockway Mountain. We'll go up there later. Right now we gotta go to Horseshoe Harbor and we're gonna try to photograph the 3 humpbacks. Okay, we're gonna hit the trail. So there's one other car here right now. Hopefully we'll be pretty lucky and there won't be too many people out here. Usually in the summertime when I'm here, there's about 4 or 5 cars. You know, this is kind of late October or mid-October, smack dab in the middle. And most people usually come up here towards the beginning of October and then through the summer, so. It's a pretty fun trail to hike. It can be described in 2 words, rocks and roots. It's all over the ground, are huge rocks and boulders, and then roots from all the surrounding trees that have been worn out. The path's been worn out from people hiking. Okay, we're getting pretty close to Lake Superior in Horseshoe Harbor. I know that because the path has transitioned to mostly roots, rocks, to a bunch of small rocks and a huge buildup of boulders all over the place. And that's pretty much what the shoreline is here. All tiny rocks that have been ground up over the centuries. So here we are. Yeah. Fix that. Here we are, Horseshoe Harbor. Last year when I was here, there was a lot of golden birch leaves that had fallen around here. And I made a exposure that I called Golden Slumbers from this location, facing back here towards these rocks over here. But I'm not seeing any of those gold birch leaves out laying about like I did last year, and I was really hoping to see that because I was going to try to do a close-up of intimate birch leaves on the rocks, but not getting that right now, so I'll have to try for something else. But anyway, let's hike up this way and get out to the point there. Alright, so I've got the shot composed, and it's the 3 rock formations right over here in front of me that we talked about earlier. It's very similar to the composition that I made when I was here in the summer, but I'm expecting to get a little bit different results, and I'm hoping to catch a lot of that light still rimming the 3 humpbacks before the sun sets over my back shoulder here. So right now for f/45, I'm getting a 2nd for the exposure, but I've got a 3-stop ND on there, so I can kind of slow things down and get a longer exposure. So adding 3 seconds is going to put us at 8 seconds. And then with 8 seconds, as a reciprocity failure, you add another few seconds to that, so 8 seconds becomes 12 seconds. So right now, if I were to make an exposure now to get it correct, it would be a 12-second exposure. I'm not going to do that yet. I'm going to wait a little while longer and see how much longer I can hold on to the light on those rocks before it starts dipping. But I want things to soften up a little bit. So right now, just took a meter reading, and for F45, it's giving me a time of 4 seconds. So you have the 3 stops that I've got in there for ND, and that puts us at 30 seconds. And with reciprocity failure, it's double almost, so it's like 60 seconds. So we're at a minute right now. I'm gonna wait a little bit longer, and then I'm gonna make an exposure with this light on it, because I want to catch some detail on these rocks. So we are starting to lose the light though over the top of the ridge behind us. So as you would expect, as it gets darker, obviously it's going to take longer to expose this sheet. So the rocks out there are metering at 9, and the sky is metering at 12. The water is metering at 11. So I can control the sky with my grad filter, but the water is really going to determine my max exposure. So I'm going to set that at zone 7, and that's going to give me the maximum amount of brightness that I can expose the water for without losing a lot of detail, without it becoming completely white with color slide film. So that's where I'm at now, and at F45 that puts us at 8 seconds. You add 3 seconds to that, that puts us at a minute. And then with reciprocity, when we get to a minute, you're going to double that again. So here's my cheat sheet right here. So for a minute now, we're at about 120 seconds, which is, we're starting to push it a little bit. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to lose the 3-stop ND, the Firecrest filter. Because if I do that, it puts me back to 8 seconds without reciprocity failure, and 8 seconds is actually 12 seconds. And that's enough to get plenty of movement in the water. The sky's not doing anything, so I'm going to lose that 3-stop ND grad. That filter was absolutely, the paper that I put the filter on is absolutely wet. So as the temperature drops out here, everything starts, the moisture starts to settle on things, and so the paper's wet, and it happens every time I'm out here shooting. It gets so cool and it drops so rapidly that everything starts to condense. The moisture in the air starts to condense really quickly. But this is going to put us back in a much better place. So I'm going to make another exposure right about now. I've got 2 more sheets of film. I still got plenty of light on those rocks. I'm going to take my chance right now and make an exposure. So I ran that exposure for 23 seconds. I may have underexposed that just a tad, but it shouldn't make that much of a difference. The light's really starting to get amazing out there. You can see this band of purple right along the horizon, and then it's kind of going up bluer as it goes up, but still got plenty of light out on those rock formations, so I'm actually going to get a little bit of detail in there. They won't be fully silhouetted. So that's kind of what I was looking for. This one should look pretty good, but we've got 2 more sheets of film. I probably won't expose both of them, but I think I'm going to wait a little bit longer and make 1 more exposure while we're here. Okay, so it is 7 o'clock, officially sunset. I'm going to make the last exposure I'm going to make right about now. There's still plenty of light with detail on the rocks out there. And metering the water, my meter's telling me that that's coming in at about a 9, and the rocks out there and the foreground rocks are coming in at about a 7. So 7 sets in around zone 5, which is middle gray, and the water is metering at 9, which is my zone 7, which is the brightest I can have without losing any detail. There's some really beautiful colors in the water and in the sky right now. And I'm going to make one more exposure here on the 4x5 before I lose any detail on those rocks. So it's going to put me at F45 puts me at 30 seconds. So if I double that, I'm about a minute on my exposure. So I'm going to make an exposure for about a minute, maybe a minute and 2 seconds. And then that'll probably be it here for today. So let's do that. Okay, we made exposure for 1 minute, and it's beautiful out there. I mean, it's gorgeous. It's purpley and blue, and that's what I love about this area is the rocks appear to be purple, the sky's purple, the water's purple. All these come together and create this just amazing, amazing landscape here, and just love coming to Copper Harbor. So 3 exposures in. This one probably be my favorite. Let's hope everything comes out okay. But yeah, it's 7:05. That sunset was 7:08. So we've got about a half hour of twilight or so. I want to get it packed up and start hiking back in before it gets too dark. Got a lot of stuff to carry, so let's go ahead and break this down. Well, we're back at camp. The SD card I had in the GH3 ended up running out of juice at the end when I was packing up the Ebony 4x5, so I had to pull out one of my spares, one of the 2 remaining spares that I have. I brought 4 SD cards, 2 64 gig and 2 32 gig, and then I brought a couple other for audio. But I've eaten through a 64 and a 32 already, and we're not really even halfway through the trip, so I'm gonna have to dial it down a little bit. But yeah, one thing I've learned is either I'm gonna have to have a way to back these cards up in the field, or I'm gonna need to get some more SD cards. If anybody's wondering what to get me for Christmas, SD cards. But yeah, it felt good to make a couple exposures on the 4x5 again. As I said, it's been about a year. Last exposures I made were here at Copper Harbor. And it felt good to get the Ebony out and do that. So we ended up making 3 exposures down there at Horseshoe Harbor. And hoping that last one, I got some good hopes for that last one. There's definitely some good color in the sky, and still enough detail on those foreground rocks to kind of light that up. And you could tell what it was. So, and as I said, I had a little bit higher perspective than I did when I was here in the summer, and I made those exposures with the Mamiya 7 II. So looking forward to getting those developed and seeing how that comes out. But yeah, as I said, right now I'm just sitting here at the campfire enjoying a beer, and not sure what I'm gonna do tomorrow morning. Get up and might head down to the spot that I was last year around this time also, and maybe see what that looks like, and maybe make a exposure or 2 with the Mamiya 7 II. We'll see. One thing I do know is I'm gonna take a shower tomorrow, because that's the last day I'm gonna be able to do that, because at noon tomorrow they're gonna close the bathroom, so definitely want to make sure I get the shower in. But yeah, I'm just gonna sit here and enjoy this nice fire and finish this beer and then turn in. So thanks for joining me today, and we'll see what tomorrow holds. Cheers.